Time to re-up YouTube. Your boy Mustard is back with another video, and I'm not gonna lie, I do not take pleasure in roasting the Clippers in this video, unlike a lot of the other videos I've made on this team's playoff demises in the past. But when I tell you guys that watching Game 5 was one of the funniest experiences of my basketball life, I'm not joking. To see Russell Westbrook go out there in another playoff game in the same series and shoot 3 of 18 in a closeout game has to be the icing on the cake of one of the strangest series I've ever seen in my life. But in all seriousness though, this is not gonna be a Russell Westbrook slander video, trust me. This is about the Clippers and what's next for this franchise following another playoff disappointment. But before we go any further, you guys make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications. But without further ado, let's get back to the subject at hand and talk about this Clippers roster. Now, Ty Lue had a comment yesterday that I could have swore was fake when I first saw it. This man actually said, and I kid you not, that when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are healthy, the saving grace is that they've never lost a series with them. And I'm not gonna lie, that has to be peak lack of self-awareness or just straight up trolling. Because Ty Lue has to understand that even though Kawhi and PG did not play, he has to bear some responsibility for why this team struggled not only in this series, but throughout the entire year. You sat there and watched Marcus Morris consistently play games over and over and over this regular season before you finally decided to bench him come playoff time, and you didn't even completely bench him as he played 3 games and averaged 23 minutes a game in those games. Are you serious, Ty? And on top of that, it's very clear that they need some length and size on the wing, and you don't even put in Rocco? That's just unacceptable. I really don't know what the future holds for Ty Lue on this roster, if he's gonna stay with the team past this year or not, but at the end of the day, I thought this was a very disappointing season from Ty Lue as the head coach. But now that we've addressed the whole coaching situation, let's talk about what this roster is gonna look like next year. So far, it looks like everybody's gonna be back next season, outside of only 2 names, Mason Plumlee and obviously Russell Westbrook. In the case of Plumlee, he's a solid little backup big. If they bring him back, that's good. If not, it is what it is. They can cut their losses and move on. But I will say a backup big is something that they were missing for a good chunk of the season, so if they can bring him back, then they definitely should. But as far as Russell Westbrook, let me say this about Brody. Look, Westbrook has been memed and made fun of to death, and I've been a part of it. I am not gonna deny. Hell, I even started off this video kind of making fun of him. Like I said, there's just something funny about starting a series shooting 3 for 19 and ending the series in Game 5 shooting 3 for 18. Like, that was a classic Russell Westbrook ass performance. I'm not gonna lie to you. But at the end of the day, Russell Westbrook showed with the Los Angeles Clippers that he can be a very valuable player even on a championship team. I don't care what anybody says. He still has value when it comes to his rim pressure. He is a relentless attacker of the basket, and because of that, he can create so many opportunities for his teammates. There were so many times in this series where he just generated high value assists. Throw in the fact that he's always attacking the glass as a rebounder. He's very underrated, I would even say, at this point in his career as far as that goes. So many people just think he's a stat patter, and no, he actually shows a lot of hustle and effort on the boards. But the one thing I appreciated more than anything was the improvement defensively. Now, I know Russell Westbrook off the ball is not a very good defender, but in this series, I believe on the ball and off the ball, he was very good. Primarily, obviously, on the ball. Westbrook has transformed himself into one of the best on-ball defenders at that position. Obviously, he's no Drew Holiday or Marcus Smart or Derek White, but he's still a very sound on-ball defender. And when you wrap all of his qualities up, sure, he isn't the most efficient player, but he's still somebody that on a championship team, you would want to have on your roster. Now, the more ideal fit would be for him to come off the bench and not be your starting point guard, but it's going to be up to Russell Westbrook on if he wants to take that role or not. But as mentioned earlier, Westbrook and Plumlee are the only guys that are not under contract for next season with this Los Angeles Clippers team. And what's crazy about that is that despite them losing both of them potentially next year in the offseason, the Clippers payroll is only going to go up even without those 2 on contract. As next year, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Eric Gordon, Norman Powell, Marcus Morris, Batum, Zubac, Bones, Amir Coffey. All of these guys' contracts are rising to another degree, and Terrence Mann, he's going from that rookie deal that he was on, and his extension starts next season as he's going from making $1.9 million this year to $10.5 million next year. The Clippers had a payroll this past season of $191.1 million. Next year, their payroll goes up to $201.8 million. And like I said earlier, that's without Mason Plumlee and Russell Westbrook with another contract on the books. And look, I understand that Steve Ballmer's got a lot of bread and he can afford to pay this luxury tax bill, but at a certain point in time, you gotta look at yourself in the mirror and say, is it really worth it to spend this much money? And it only gets worse for this team because next year, they got Eric Gordon, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Nicholas Batum. All of those guys are going to be on the last year of their contracts. And look, not all those guys are even good players, especially come playoff time with a guy like Marcus Morris. But I just want to know, what is the plan next year? Are you just going to run it back with these guys? Because that then brings me to their two-headed snake of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. I'm not going to lie to you guys. These two are some of the most injury-prone players in the history of this league. I love Paul George. I think his game is super smooth, even though this year we didn't really get to see that smoothness to the degree that I wanted to, but nonetheless he still is one of the better wings in the NBA that provides value on both sides of the ball, no matter how much it has regressed over the last couple of years. But unfortunately, with his decline in play over the last couple of years, combined with the fact that Paul George is injury prone, I really don't know where that leaves the Los Angeles Clippers with his status on the roster. I mean, on one hand you could say you need to trade him, but on the other hand, let's be serious here. Do you really want to move somebody like that right now? For starters, it's almost impossible to get legitimate compensation for a star player in this league, and even if you do, not only are you risking Kawhi Leonard potentially wanting out because he did go to LA for Paul George, but even if Kawhi Leonard chooses to stay, he has a player option in 2025. Next year could potentially be his last year as a Los Angeles Clipper. To make such a drastic move to potentially move Paul George for probably some picks and role players, do you really want to run that risk? And also, to be honest, I'm not sure that Paul George's value is even that high to begin with. I mean, a 32-year-old injury-prone declining wing that's making over $95 million over the next 2 seasons combined, yeah, I think most teams are gonna pass on that. But then that brings me to their main superstar, Kawhi Leonard, and I'm not gonna lie, I've been a big proponent and defender of Kawhi Leonard on this channel. You guys know that. But his health is really starting to scare me more than ever. I remember on Twitter a while ago, and if you're not following me, make sure you go and do that. I saw a tweet about Stephen A. Smith saying that Kawhi Leonard is the worst superstar of all time because of his injury status. And I was annoyed by that because at the end of the day, he's still one of the 20 to 25 best players of all time, even despite the injuries. His two-way impact is generational, and even though he's not the defender that he used to be, offensively, he rises to the occasion come playoff time. I mean, how can I not respect a player whose game is built like that? Unfortunately though, I hate to say it, Stephen A. Smith did have truth to his statement. I may not agree that he is the worst superstar of all time, but the lack of availability that Kawhi Leonard has shown over the last 3 seasons has been insane. This is a guy that 2 years ago tore his meniscus in the conference finals, then proceeded to not play throughout the entire season the next year, which was all fair game in my opinion. Rehab that knee, do what you gotta do to be healthy, but then unfortunately this year, once again, he tears his meniscus in the first round. The Clippers medical staff, they have kept a lot of these injuries under wraps, by the way. The fact that in Kawhi Leonard's last 2 playoffs, he tore his meniscus and they waited till after the postseason to tell us, my God, crazy work for real. But back to my main point, when it comes to Kawhi Leonard's health, that is too big of an issue right now at this stage in his career. He's 31 years old. Next year at the start of the season, he's gonna be 32. He's not getting any younger and his knees aren't getting any stronger. He's already struggling to beat some players off the dribble. He doesn't get rim pressure the way that he used to. And defensively, he was already sliding hard from the player that he used to be, even though he's still a very capable player on that side of the ball. And with all of that being said, is it really worth it to have have him as your franchise guy, especially when your number 2 is also injury prone? The Clippers gave up so much just to get this experiment off. They gave up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a boatload of picks. And right now, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is literally better than the guy that they traded him for. So once again, I ask you Clippers fans, I ask you Clipper Nation, I ask you Steve Ballmer, is it really worth it? Like seriously, is it worth it to keep this team intact? I understand your future is not in your hands, it's in the hands of Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder. But in a conference, hell, in a league where talent is growing day by day by day, and your place in the NBA is never a secure thing, are you really willing to keep spending money just to be mediocre? Are you really willing to keep spending money just so you can have one conference finals appearance with this duo? Are you really willing to keep spending money just so you can have only one playoff run where both of your max contract players who are making over $180 million combined for the next 2 seasons where they can play beginning till end? These are the questions that Steve Ballmer and the Clippers front office need to ask themselves. And if they feel like it's worth it, then hey, keep going. And maybe the basketball gods will finally reward this franchise for all the shit they've gone through over the last decade. Or maybe they're just gonna be stuck in this repetitive cycle of losing in the first and second round with their players being injured every single time. But hey, what do I know? You guys let me know your opinions down below in the comment section because I could be way off. I want to know what you guys think. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. It helps me out in the algorithm and puts this video out everywhere. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. You guys stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.